Well, Virginia, I don't know where you are in terms of traffic, but if you, I can go ahead and get started if you want to. All right. So thanks everybody that's here. Most of you know me. I'm Brad Robbins, Director of Career Development here at AUM, and I'm excited to kind of talk to you today about career planning and how UNIV fits in with that, and really just more, instead of just sort of going through the same sort of spiel that I always do, I wanted to kind of talk with you guys about, mostly what they don't tell you, or what you might can anticipate in terms of your students having questions, or where they're at when they're in your class, in terms of where they're at in the career development process. So I'm going to share my screen. The first thing I want to do before I get started with all of that, let's see. Can everyone see? Good. Thumbs up. Awesome. Okay. So most of you have heard me talk in the past about my, thoughts on career development, and, where I stand and how important it is for students and things like that, and why we do what we do in the Career Center. And, instead of just hearing it from me, the same sort of thing, I wanted to start off with a quick video that's from a guy named Andy Chan. And Dr. Andy Chan is the Vice President for Career Development and Innovation, or I might have that backwards. I think it might be Innovation and Career Development at Wake Forest University. I call him the guru of career development, because that's what he is. In our world of career professionals, he's the guru. He's the one that sort of set in motion the events of the last decade in terms of advancements in career development. So when you hear me talk about things like career readiness and NACE competencies and, articulation and things like that, things that we now have in our strategic plan, thank goodness, they all kind of, this is the man that kind of set a lot of this in motion. Before he came along, and before we had before his groundbreaking TED Talk, which is called Career Services Must Die, which is kind of weird. You'd think, oh my gosh, why would we want to kill our own profession? But the idea is of a service versus career development. And so we are the Career Development Center. I inherited that name, but it would be the name I would want to have if I had started it as well, because it really focuses, it is a shift in terms of it being a transactional relationship that we have with students at the moment that you want a job, to helping you develop what you need alongside your academics so that you can get what you're looking for after graduation. So I'm going to start this video, and some of the things, like I said, some of the themes you might have heard from me before, but hopefully it will be impactful to you. And I know I need to find the play thing here. So let's start. See, hopefully, whoops. I know there's a play button here somewhere. Oh, here we go. No, that's the...
Brad, you're not in presentation mode. If you go to presentation mode, then it'll play.
Okay, how do I do that?
Go to the top and you'll see slideshow next to animations.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry. God, I can't believe
okay. Go to slideshow and then from current screen, and then.
Yeah, my bad. I was thinking I was in presentation mode.
Okay. And then if you go to the next one, you'll wherever.
Okay. Thank you. I just started talking and forgot to put it in there.
So the solution?
Everybody hear it?
Career services must die. And when I use that phrase, career services, the idea behind it is that the brand of career services communicates something to everyone. Words matter. And when you have a service, there's an idea that a student has in their mind. I've talked to them, I've asked, and they've said, well, I thought when I went to the office that with this 45-minute appointment that I have with this counselor, that they would say, after I talked to them about what I'm interested in, which I wasn't really sure what I was interested in anyway, but they would come back and say, you should do this, because if you do this, you'll be happy for the rest of your life. And that didn't happen. And then they said, but I also thought they would either give me a bunch of contacts who would just have jobs, or ones where they just said, I have a bunch of jobs open that are just like what you want, here you go. And that's not gonna happen either, we know that. And so as a result, you can imagine a student says, wait, that didn't go the way that I wanted, and I'm gonna make sure I tell all my classmates how bad it was. And when the faculty ask me, how's that career office going? They'd say, they stink. They aren't helpful because they didn't give me what I want, because I thought it was gonna be easy, I thought it was gonna be fast. Sort of like the way I applied to college, right? The way I applied to college, I just filled out a form, send it in, people said yes and no, and then I'm in. That's not the way the job market works, but that's what students are thinking, because it's the only other time they really applied for something that had that type of importance to them. We have to teach them the way it actually really works. So the words matter. The second thing is that when you think about the idea of services, is that it does set a certain expectation. And in this world, everyone wants things fast. They want it really easy. The other piece that I would also say is that this process is actually a process of development and growth and learning. The idea of trying to understand what your career is about starts with who are you in terms of your interests, your values, your strengths, your personality, your beliefs, the things what matter to you and what do you care about. And that takes time to think about and to reflect and figure out. Students need to have time to go through that process, and they need to be told that's important. And at the same time, they have to figure out how does that connect into the world. They need to be given opportunities and ways, encouragement to actually go out into the world and figure that out and talk to people about that and try things. And with that, they can come back and forth and back and forth, and slowly the picture will start to really be created. But we don't ever really tell students that. And we just think that they'll just figure it out on their own. But that's not career services, that is career development. And for me, what we call it is personal and career development, because you're starting first with the person. If we get too focused on the career side, we're always focused on what do I do? How do I get the job? How do I get out there? And let me get it. But we actually have to start with, let's start with who are you and why are you? And what really matters to you? And keep asking yourself those questions, and then you'll start to figure it out.
So a few things that he said there that are just sort of foundational to what we do in the Career Development Center. We talked about it being development. It's a process. It's something that happens over time. So when your students are with you at that first moment and you bring up that word career, they're going to be thinking, many of them are going to be thinking a lot like the students that Dr. Chan talked about in the video. It's like, oh, that's something that I'll engage with when I'm ready to get a job. And then when I engage with it, there'll be one for me, because that's what everyone's told me up to this point. You know, when they said, go to college, go through your 4 or 5 years, however long it's going to take you, and bam, next thing you'll do is get a job. In his video, he talks about, in another part about, he talks about the process of applying for college and how all it was filling out an application, putting your information in, getting a yes or no, and then you start the process of college. And so that's kind of how the mindset of a student. When they're thinking about their future, they think it's just something that's going to happen when it happens. You know, and I don't have to worry about it right now. Yeah. And when I do go to worry about it, oh, that's okay. They'll give it to me because I've done the work and I've put in the time, and I'll just be able to get the thing that I want at that moment. And so when he talks about the idea of career services must die, that was the world of career at that point. Someone said once that the career was considered a peripheral service that a student could use if they needed it. You know, and when I'm not just talking about a career center, career services of any kind at college, whether it's within a career center or whether it was, you know, wherever, that's just something we do if we need to, you know, but really that's not, you know, that's not essential. You know, so I'm here to tell you today that I'm glad that AUM has embraced this over the years, that career development is an essential process in a student's time at college. So when we talk about career development too, he talked about it as a process that you engage in over time, that you have to start at the beginning. So Career development is a process. And when you think of the word development, it's growth, right? It doesn't end, it's not something that just happens at a moment in time. It's growth over time. You start with something that exists in this state and it grows into something bigger. And so that's what career development is. And it's also a sequential process. You start from the start and you move through the stages. You don't start at stage number 4. So you've heard me say this before, and this is one of the sort of tenets of our of the message that we give in career development is this 4-stage process of career development: assess, explore, prepare, engage. So when we say assess, that's what are your interests, skills, and values? It basically what Dr. Chan was saying, who are you and what's important to you? And then also thinking about what could be a good fit for me in this one. Now, they're going to tell you, your students, a good amount of them is like, I already done all that. I know exactly what I want, and so I don't need to engage in this assessment. This focus 2 that you're going to tell me to do, this is just something that I'm going to do and not worry about it because I know exactly what I want to do already. I've known since I was 10 years old, that this is what I wanted to do. So what is the purpose of that for me if I already know? Well, we want students to make informed decisions. The more information they know about who they are and what's important to them, the more informed decision they're going to make. And the idea is when I'm assessing this, it's not about assessing to make the right choice. It's assessing to learn, what did this choice look like for me in terms of fit? It doesn't mean that you have to change your mind. As a matter of fact, there's this wonderful word that I love called calling that a lot of people believe in. And I'm not here to discount a calling at all. A calling might be a motivator that can get a student through the hard things, if they feel like that's an extra sort of that or a grit that they could use, but it doesn't mean that the reality of who you are and what's important to you versus what's necessary to be a good fit from a career standpoint changes. It is what it is. And that's what Focus 2, and that's the real sort of, that's the real value of these tools, is because it can give you an honest assessment of who you are and how that fits with different career fields and different career options. So that's what we want students to gain from this. It's not about a choice, because what will happen is your students will come to you and say, this Focus 2 told me I should be a mortician, so it broke for me. It doesn't work, So what we want is for them to be able to say, well, if you chose mortician, other than working with dead bodies, is there any other part of that matches your interests, skills, and values? I'm not telling you to do that, but this is how this is why this system is valuable, because it gets you to think in ways that you may not have before, either about the choices you've already made or potential choices that could be available for you. Number 2, explore. When I know who I am and what's important to me, what options are available within different majors and fields, and if I choose this, what strategies, goals, and milestones are necessary to enter this field? So I could ask you today, and I'm not going to, but when you think, if you have a spare 2 minutes, write down every career you can think of in 2 minutes. Yeah, we're not doing it now, but just think about that exercise. How many would you have on your sheet of paper? Maybe 20 in 2 minutes, maybe more, maybe you filled a whole page. 2 things: your students are unlikely to have that many because they haven't been exposed to as many options as you have up to this point in your life. And more importantly, number 2, of the 50 that you had on your sheet, there are 50,000 or more that are available for those students that they've never even been exposed to. So exploration opens their eyes. It gets them to see things that they've never really thought about before up to this point. And so we really want them to engage in this process, especially in UNIV, because this is something they're going to be thinking about even as they move through their academic course of study. So, they may choose a tree trunk major. And that's the word I use for majors like biology or psychology or sociology or economics or communications or any of those. Not traditional track majors, but the tree trunk majors. So if you've chosen a tree trunk major, all that means is you're getting on the tree. There are a lot of branches in that major that you may not even know exist yet until you start to move through your course of study. But if you think about it through the vein of exploration, when you first take that microbiology class, I like microbiology. I didn't know I liked about myself before this. But if I chose this field, what strategies, goals, and milestones would be necessary to get into it? Instead of just saying, oh, I like microbiology, I think I'll do that. Maybe it doesn't fit, or maybe if it does, but you'd need to adjust some things or think about what would it take to go to grad school or what have you. So hopefully they've built what we call a career plan or multiple plans after the assessment and explore. I don't like the words plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, that sort of thing, because it makes it sound like you failed if you don't have plan A. I like the idea of multiple plans. And if the plan you're on doesn't work, well, then choose a new plan A for yourself. All of your plans are plan A if you're on that plan right now. So, but once you've chosen your plans or what do you need to do to successfully transition from being a student to being a professional? I'm here, I want to be here. What are the things I need to engage in? That's the preparation stage. Actually working on those things, building in those accomplishments, engaging in experiential learning, all of those things that you need to be able to articulate your readiness when you're ready to look into the world of work, which is stage number 4, engage. How do you search for opportunities? How do you communicate with recruiters? What strategies do you need to use for networking? All of those things. But as you can see, it's important that they start from the start. And if we're working with a student in career advising, they may come into my office and say, I need help on my resume. But after 2 minutes of talking to them, I realize they didn't start at the beginning. And so we've got to start them at the beginning. We're going to bring them all the way back to that assess stage and say, what do you want? What's important to you? Because in their mind, they want a job, just like Dr. Chan said. But they're not going to get that job unless they have intentionally engaged in this process. And so for some people, it's going to be a 6-week crash course their last semester of college. We want to avoid that. That's why we introduce these concepts in UNIV. They don't need to go through this process that one semester. Obviously, they're going to take this time. As Dr. Chan said, it takes time to develop this stuff. You assess and explore, and you realize that the plan that you had wasn't the right plan for you. Go back to assess. It's okay. We can do that, in college. So that's what we mean by career development. And that's why we are career development people and not career services people. And so all of you guys are, by extension, career development people too. So I think it's important for you all to kind of understand this is a process and this is what we have to communicate to our students because they don't know.
Brad, could I interject real quick? Could you go back to that first screen, the one previous? I'm so sorry. And just, I put this in the chat too. Assess part's focus 2 that all students will complete. Explore is also in focus 2, but also we introduce students to ONET online. And then the preparation, we now utilize a pre-flight application where students in UNIV are assigned to download this app and they can keep track of all kinds of experiential and student involvement and engagement. So those are 3 things that we do start in UNIV to help prepare them for this process.
Yeah, so they're going to know about it when they're finished with this class. The key is do they engage with it? But we're going to make sure that they do because it's in our best interest to do so. But the key is they don't know this stuff. We've got to embrace that knowledge as in college that they haven't been exposed to these principles. A 2017 Strata Gallup survey, which has been a kind of a big benchmark survey that we've used in career to sort of think about these notions of career readiness and what we need. This is a survey that was done in 2017 for students 3 years post-graduation. So we're talking about students that have been removed from college 3 years. Over half of those students said that they would make different educational decisions if given the chance. And 36% of them would have changed their major from what they graduated in. I think that's pretty profound. I think that tells us that there are so many students that are still sort of sleepwalking through this process of career development and then expecting this magic wand to happen for them. And the reason for that is because that's what they don't know any different. They just think they know that they should transform in college, but they just sort of expect it to magically happen for them, and they're not keeping up with what they're doing to help them grow and become professionals in their field. When they get to you, this is what a high school student, a traditional high school student, an 18-year-old, this is what they've faced. The current average student counselor ratio in U.S. public schools is 479 to 1. The American School Counselor Association recommends at least 250 to 1. And if you have any knowledge of some of the major demographic or backgrounds of our students and where they came from, that 479 to 1 is probably worse, considering some of the school systems and some of the rural areas and things like that make up a lot of our students. Research shows that students are 45% more confident in career path decisions when they've received that formal career advising and counseling. So we know that it works for them, but they're not getting it before they get to us. And so we have got to start putting, we already are, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but we're putting on those hats of advisors and counselors because they're not getting it up to this point. So this is especially true, that 45% efficacy there is especially true for minority and first generation students. When they have formal counseling and advising, they are much more likely to feel confident in what they've done. And so when we do engage in UNIV in these intentional activities, these are things that are going to stick with them. Even if we don't see it right away, perhaps this is going to help them with their confidence in their decision, or help them be confident enough to make a new decision if they need to. So what's this big deal with the idea of career readiness? It's something that you guys are hearing a lot about, I know, and I wanted to take, and I know it's going to be introduced to your students through the flight plan that Amy was talking about. And it's also something that you hear a lot that comes out of our center and through some of these other places on campus. So there's an organization called NACE, National Association of Colleges and Employers. They define career readiness as the foundation from which to demonstrate requisite core competencies that broadly prepare the college educated for success in the workplace and lifelong career management. So the key word there is demonstrate. Okay, it's not just about the acquisition, it's the demonstration. That's what turns it from I'm career capable to I'm career ready. And so we have to build in opportunities for our students to build their career readiness over time, like Dr. Chan says, while they're in college. So I put a hyperlink, so if I can share this with Amy and she can share it with you guys. So you can go in and take a look at that. It's on the NACE website. It's a big thing about their competencies. But I want to talk a little bit about something that you all know about and here already. And I lovingly call it the triple EC. Some people call it the E cubed C, or they'll spell it out EEEC, which is hard for me. So I'm a triple EC man. You guys can call it whatever you want. But experiential and the Experiential Education and Engagement Center. It's a game changer for our university. This is high impact practices that are being done at some of the most renowned colleges in the country. The idea of having a dedicated center to help students engage in experiential learning and these activities while they're still in college. I encourage each of you to push the triple EC in your courses. Make sure they are aware of it. Make sure that they know how to reach out to the people if they want one of those, what we call Big Four experiential experiences. That's internship, study abroad, undergraduate research, or service learning. Those are the big four. And these are the things that are going to give these students what they need to be able to demonstrate their career readiness. I am so in love with the Triple EC and what it can possibly do because I'm selfish, because I'm going to get better students to be able to help if they have done more experiential learning and also student involvement and working on campus. We want to try to turn this campus jobs experience as much as we can into an experiential activity. But whatever it is, those things that they can do to build accomplishments that demonstrate their career readiness and show that they're highly qualified for whatever they want to do. So please, please plug this. And you're going to see in just a few years great results from this. I can't wait to show the data of how our students have been more successful in the workforce because they've engaged in more experiential learning activities. It's going to be amazing. Finally, the last thing I want to leave you with is, what should you encourage your students to do beyond that? Of course, we just talked about that, but some really high impact things that you can talk to your students as you're moving through this chapter 5, and the things here. If I were in your shoes, what would I say to these students? And I'm going to have a little passel of students myself that I will say these things to, but what can you do? Embrace transformation. The idea that you can go to college for 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, and be the same person that you are today when you graduate is baloney. You will not be able to actively to demonstrate your career readiness, to engage in a job search effectively, to do any of these things if you are the same person at the end that you were at the beginning. So as you experience new things in your classes, with your friend groups, with that internship, embrace the idea that this is changing me, that I'm developing in my career. All right. And don't just think, well, this is just stuff that I'm going through and there's no need to, and it'll just magically happen for me. Go beyond tasks and titles when you're researching the different career options that are available for you. When you're moving through this process of exploration, don't just say mortician deals with dead people. Think about what that career means beyond just the work that they do. You all have had jobs. You know that it's a lot more than the work you do. It's the people you work with, the environment you work in, the pay, the benefits, the opportunities for advancement, the special skills needed, the technology you use, on and on and on. That's what makes a job, or a career field. So when you're engaging in this process of exploration, don't just stop at the work. Yeah. And also, if ONET isn't enough to get a glimpse of this, find some people in the world that do this. We can help with that. It's called job shadowing, or externship is another word that's used for it. And learn the day-to-day of this person. If in your mind nursing is glamorous and that's what I want to do, go work go shadow a nurse during the graveyard shift. And you'll get a different, I'm not trying to discourage people from being nurses, but it is that holistic view of what that job actually means. Create career plans, big S, orange, bold there, more than one. If you're thinking, this will be especially easy, like I said, for those tree trunk majors, a little more difficult for the accountants or the nurses or the elementary school teachers or something like that. It may not be that you change the title of the job that you're doing, but you might open yourself to different types of nursing or different organizations that have accountants and things like that. Engage in experiential learning. I can't say that enough. Keep up with the accomplishments that you do along the way. We're making this easier for students to do, but they still have to do it. They still have to engage in this process because it's going to be a lot harder. You guys have experienced this, I'm sure. It's harder to think about what you've done when you're having to do it on the spot. But if you can work on things that help you acquire these over time, it's going to be easier to recall them when you need to. Practice career engagement. This is that sort of thing that's a little weird. for a first year student, why do I need to worry about writing a resume now, or a cover letter, or getting a handshake profile, or, or going to career fairs or anything like that? Because it's important, because it'll help you practice these things that you're going to need to do. And again, it's going to give you more information, informed career decision making. So I didn't know that company existed here in Montgomery. That's pretty cool. Maybe I'll add them to my preferred destinations when I go to graduate, and I'll learn more about that organization as I'm going through college, and I'll build skills that reflect the values that they have as an organization, and I'll have a better chance of getting a job there when I graduate. And finally, see somebody about this. Don't just do this on your own or in a vacuum or something like that. We want to engage with each student individually in the center. I'm sure I've probably gone over my time, but I hope that this has been helpful to you. If you have any questions for me about any of this, I'm happy to talk about them after today, or you can just reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Brad. We're recording the session. We'll upload it. There are also Brad's resources that we utilize, Focus 2, ONET, that are inside Blackboard, the community folder. And of course, I put the chapter. You can click on that link to access it. So thank you again. And Virginia, if you're ready to hit the ground running, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for letting me be a special guest. Brad, that was a great setup, and I really just think some of the specific pieces that I wanted to pull out to sort of drive home is the ways in which, we're not just assessing throughout the UNIV class, and heads up, my family's about to get back in the car. It's not just the way in which we assess, but also how we do engage them. So there's a couple of very specific things that I just wanted to put on people's radars where you can give students food for thought and then send them on their way, especially when we're thinking about the midterm project. So through that project, we are asking them to pull things together like their plans of study. And there's a lot going on in the world of advising right now. I'm sure y'all are all kind of aware in here. We've got, DegreeWorks has been upgraded, and advisors are increasingly going to be using that. We've decided to tag along with Daddy for his work trip. We're just fitting it all in. That's one way in which now, hopefully moving forward for all of us as UNIV instructors, it's going to be a little more straightforward because we can send all of our students to DegreeWorks and they'll be able to see their plan of study in that space. And there's this really cool feature that's in that called, I think it says, what can I do with a major in? But essentially they can select these options and begin to change the major of choice. And so that really, for our students who are in that assessment phase with the Focus 2, in addition to that, we have that advising assignment where we're sending them to their advisor. We should be folding all of these things in where we're really prepping them to talk to their advisor about these issues, to maybe raise, hey, I brought up this plan of study. What does this even mean? I'm confused about math. I would say that overwhelmingly, that is where we see our students get stuck. And I don't know if you guys who have taught before have noticed students who major in majors that require a lot of math and science often underestimate or have a hard time understanding the prerequisites required to move forward in that specific major. But if we're doing all of these things within this chapter, really, as we're introducing all these assignments, we can say, hey, if you're confused about your plan of study and what it takes to become X major, now's the time to ask your advisor these questions in your advising appointment. Or as you're preparing for this midterm project, work on that plan of study that you were supposed to map out for this major, but maybe that Focus 2 did have you kind of curious about another major. That is the perfect time to bring that plan of study up and either ask to meet with the advisor for that major, or of course, their own academic advisor. Now, I just want to throw out there something to really keep in mind for us as UNIV instructors is not all advising offices have equal caseloads. Some advisors really, truly have a difficult time seeing all their students based on just, the numbers of students they have. So if your student's coming to you and they're saying, I just haven't been able to get the amount of time I would like to talk about these things with my advisor, let's help them find a person that would be very well suited. Yes, we like to send them to academic advisors, but we can send them to a lot, like Brad mentioned, there's career advisors, we have an undeclared advisor whose job is to kind of talk about, know a little bit about a lot of things. Maybe we ourselves know a lot about a certain major. Like Claire comes to mind. She could probably talk to a student about the psychology degree plan, if they had a lot of questions, and Kristen Lejeune, for whatever reason, is unavailable. So I think just piece that I was kind of wanting to bring out on top of what Brad was speaking to is just, we do have a lot of assignments that are specifically having students engage in this work. And I think our primary role as instructors is to help them know what questions to ask. And also, if they feel as though they are not getting the questions answered, because I had a similar experience of going into like a career office thinking they were going to tell me what to do with my life. We have to teach them that they have to be the fish, and let's help you find people that can help answer those questions for you. So that's really the main stuff that I just kind of wanted to bring out. What are the notes that I make? Just really giving them a framework as they're helping fill out these assignments. I would say that some of the feedback I've gotten from advisors in the past for us to think about when we're introducing these concepts and assignments is they don't know why they're having to do what they're doing. So like, I don't know why I'm having to ask the advisor these questions, or I don't understand the purpose for this component in my midterm project. So I think bringing back to the theory, they don't necessarily have to understand the theory, but bringing back, look, we are asking you to accept and explore and prepare and engage in this microcosm in our class, so that you can then do this for yourself, applying moving forward as a sophomore. So I think that is going to also help them make those connections with peer mentors in the EEC, utilize Handshake, all these really cool tools. So Amy, really what I was thinking is if people did have any, questions about issues they've used trying to incorporate these projects in the past, or things they've come across, maybe we can all put our heads together and talk about ways in which we've worked around that. That's originally kind of where my head was as well for this particular topic. So I'm going to be quiet and see if anybody has any other thoughts or questions or ways in which we can process this particular concept.
Thank you, Virginia. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share regarding what Virginia said, maybe your experience working with students in UNIV? I would like to say just quickly that I almost see UNIV instructors are like a guide supporting students. First-time freshmen, they register for their classes at orientation. They go in a big room, they are guided through. When it's time for them to register for spring, they're in a UNIV class, they're already in. And so it's like, okay, they are getting emails, got to go see your advisor, here's your pen, oh, what do I do? So I see our role, and it's so important, especially at AUM, to help guide the students. Our role is to help teach them the importance of it, of course, making the connections with the career development, why we're doing this and why they're doing it, and then giving them time in class to register for those classes or remind them who their advisor is. And we have a lot of these resources inside the textbooks, but it's very, I think it's a critical role, the advising assignment, of course, the career focus too, and then the registration is just very important right now. So I'll hush and please somebody else share.
Yeah, I wanted to share something about Brad's topic. So what I tell the students is that they should update their resume every semester. When the semester is finished, update your resume. So when an internship opportunity comes up or a job opportunity, they have it ready, right? And so, because the resume is a process too, right? The draft is not really what a polished resume should look like. And so do that. I also tell them to keep like a journal of their college experience, just at the beginning of the semester and the end of the semester, at the beginning, think about what, describe your thoughts and feelings starting a new semester, and at the end reflect back on that, because sometimes you also have to write essays, and that sort of creates a memory for you.
Yeah, that's a huge point, Pia. Thank you for bringing that up, because that's what we tell students too. I mentioned that a little bit in the presentation. It's like, if you're put on the spot, you have to remember how you learned how to communicate, or how did you learn how to think critically or problem solve or something like that. You have a lot of those accomplishments along the way, but if you're just trying to think about them in the moment, they're not going to come to mind. So just engaging in these activities of reflection and, and documenting your achievements through resumes and through other things too, like e-portfolios and programs like we're going to have. And so in handshake profiles, all those things can help you jog your memory when it's time for that. So I thank you for bringing that up, because that's an excellent way for us to make sure that our students are taking something with them, that they're going to be able to use later on.
I just had another thought, kind of relative to the EEC. One, maybe we need to make sure, and I'm not in charge of this anymore, but we get Shelley to come and speak to the advisor forum soon about all of the things going on, and to remind academic advisors about all those opportunities. These UNIV students going into their sessions is reminding them to bring up. And I'm just thinking this will be new for advisors. They may not be in the front of their mind to prompt the student, but as they're building those resumes, reminding them that they can go and do all these things each semester and find very clear connections to these opportunities. So I think we may need really just encourage our students to remind the people on campus too, hey, this is important. These are things that I'm trying to get engaged with. Do you know of some other people? I mean, because I'm thinking there's a lot of other people on campus who probably haven't recommended those connections over to the EEC yet, relative to internship, externship, things of that nature. So again, that preparation is important. It's really what I'm getting back to. Hey, as you're developing these things, remind everybody we've got this really cool center. Remind the students.
Yeah, so I know EEC is new. And so they're kind of just getting started in a lot of these ways, but what you said is really important, Virginia, in that we need to be knowledgeable. All of us need to be knowledgeable of these services and these things that are available to students across campus. I tell, like when I'm doing different presentations and things like that to faculty or to, to other staff and things like that, when a student's in front of you at that moment, you need to be thinking, I'm the most influential person in this student's life in this moment. So if I let an opportunity go to not lead that student into a service or to a resource that could be helpful to them, I can't assume someone else will. And so everyone needs to take up that mantle in those moments with that student. And Amy and Professor, I think that would be peer mentors as well, making sure that they see themselves as those influencers. That's a big word nowadays, isn't it? Influencer. So embrace the influencer.
And I may just want to clarify, we don't really need to send like 1,000 students one by one to the EEC, because in general, they're really trying to work on a higher scale where they work with a faculty member to create opportunities for multiple students at once. I mean, and you all probably know Shelley, she wouldn't turn down a student who walked in the door, but instead, work with her on these more systemic things they're trying to do rather than sending somebody. There's some emails she's sending out. There's some Curtis check-ins about opportunities. They're also doing some things to train faculty, so faculty and staff will make more opportunities. But just a heads up, I was picturing a really long line going into Shelley's door.
Awesome. Thank you,
That's
Lynn.
good feedback. And what comes to mind again is then all the more reason why advisors need to be working with faculty well before advising season starts, so that they are well versed. I mean, I know faculty could be working directly with students, but if a student brings, hey, I've got this thing I'm doing, what I've found, since they are influencer is a great word, Brad, if an advisor doesn't seem to be very aware of something that's going on, the student begins to second guess, or vice versa. If an advisor tells a student something and then a faculty member, just what Brad had mentioned, they seem to not know what's going on, then there's like, oh, well, maybe this isn't a real thing. So but that is good to know that that's how it's kind of being pulled together.
Awesome. And I just wanted to show this, everybody. This is one of the in-class activities we ask you to have your students complete in class. They download this app. It's pre-flight, and they have the opportunity to attend a variety of activities, and they can log it, and it keeps track of what they've done. So as Pia and Brad mentioned, of course, resumes are great, but this is another way to begin. So if they, go to student success advising or do other activities, attend a sporting event, there are all kinds of activities that we have here. And so this is something, again, it takes less than 3 minutes to download the app and sign up and register, and then they can use it throughout their entire time while they're here at AUM.
Okay. I have another question for Paul and Brad. So if a student wants help or wants their resume to be looked over, or if they want help with a job or internship application or an essay they write for grad school or whatever, do they go to the Warhawk Success Center, a writing center, or do they go to your office, Brad?
If they want help writing the essay, they can come to us, but the other stuff would definitely be in Brad's wheelhouse.
Okay.
Yeah, we help students with all their job search materials. So resumes, cover letters, any of those kind of, mostly it's resumes and cover letters, but.
Okay.
So I'll put it in the chat. There's actually, we created an email address that students can drop an email to for resume review. It's just resumereview@aum.edu. So all they have to do is that can work for a cover letter or a resume. Students also who upload any of those documents to Handshake, they're automatically reviewed by our office. But I've been just telling students to do the resume review because it's easy. They know that they can do that, and they can always bring one by the center physically as well.
That's awesome. I had no idea. I learned something new. Any other questions or input or comments about Career Development Center and academic advising assignment within UNIV? Okay, well, I'm just going to briefly, and I'm going to get to this really quick, talk briefly about the public and professional communication. One of the, let me share my screen. In this chapter, we began discussing about communicating with your peers and with your professors, but some of this is addressed in our first chapter as well, helping students, be prepared when they're sending their professor an email and how to address it, each other in class and things of that nature. But something that in UNIV, we use alternate assessments, excuse me. So for example, our midterm, we don't have a midterm or a final that's like an essay or an exam. We have them complete a project, and they're presented as far as presentations. Now, the good thing about the midterm is it's more of a conference style presentation. So students are just like milling around, helping prepare our students for that. We have a video of an example of what it's going to look like, and we do it in the Warhawk Academic Success Center. Of course, we couldn't do that during the pandemic, but it looks like we might be able to do that again this year. And it's a great time for students to interact with each other and see, oh, this person has my major, and they carry on discussions. It's really great. But this is a great chapter to help prepare students for that. You can put them in pairs, they can work in groups, because a lot of students are very nervous about presenting. And when you say present, they're like, oh my gosh, how many people are going to be there? So giving them the opportunity in class to do a little bit here and there is so helpful. And then the final presentation, which is our final, students will work in a group. And so again, they have a chance to work with each other, and they can practice in class, and then they get to present together. They do present to each other inside the class, so that's a little less daunting than say in the WASC. But that's just one thing I wanted to point out, is that there's some really good information in this chapter, helping students deal with presentation anxiety, but giving them time in class to work on presenting and the skills and to address their fears and whatnot, I think it's just a great opportunity to get them better prepared. Does anybody have any other tips or suggestions that you've used in the past to help students when it comes to making presentations? We have a lot of great ones, and included in our Blackboard community for instructors, we have several resources and other ideas that you can choose from as well. So, well, if there's nothing else, I'd like to thank you all so much for your time, especially Brad and Virginia, for taking time to present to us. I learned a lot today. I hope you did too. And we've recorded this. We'll upload this into the YouTube channel. And again, thank you all so much for taking time to be here.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Y'all have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.